So this is week three. I've been doing these every 2 weeks or so, and this is the third filming. Call it what you want. I don't think I'm gonna label it yet. How many can you do before it becomes a thing? But I'm back, and I have lots of finished objects to share today. A couple of whips, and then I thought I'd show something that I have planned, but probably won't start until next year. We'll see. It is November 14th because yesterday was Friday the 13th, and I won't be sharing technically all of my whips today because 3 of them are gifts. 2 of them are in process. 1 of them I'm waiting on yarn to dye. Yarn to arrive. I'm going to dye it and then knit something with it. Hopefully it all works out. Knit Picks is currently doing a huge sale, I guess. It's something that they do every November, and so I took that opportunity to purchase some yarn for a project I want to make for myself. That's the next year one, and then I also purchased some Swish DK, I believe, Bear Swish DK, because I've heard that it's a lot of fun to dye, like it takes dye well, and that it also coordinates with our other colors. In this case, that won't really matter for me because I'm going to dye everything that I use in the project, but it coordinates with colors, so if I wanted to do a mix of like hand-dyed versus some of the colors that I really like from their line, then the fibers and everything will mesh really well because it's the same yarn. So I'm waiting for that. I have yarn coming for another gift. I had some of it on hand, so I worked up as much as I could before I started running out of the yarn, and the rest will have to wait until it comes. So in the meantime, I'm working on some things. I think that one is supposed to arrive next week sometime, so I'll probably jump into that one as soon as it comes. Once the bear yarn arrives, I'm gonna hopefully dye that up as soon as it comes in here, because I need to be able to knit it up. I was kind of torn on doing handmaids for gifts this year, and for the holidays, I should say. One of them is not necessarily a holiday specific gift, but I'm not going to talk about that. The other 2 are definitely going to be for Christmas gifts, and I wasn't going to do handmaids, but I changed my mind, got some ideas, so we'll see. It's halfway through November. I think they're both going to be pretty small and hopefully fast to work up though, so fingers crossed. So I'm going to start with finished objects. In fact, one of them is today's outfit. You've seen this one in I think all of my videos now. It is the Sweet Pea Wrap top. I'm going to put a photo in because this is a very long top. I love it. I really like the length of it. I think it's super flattering. I wasn't sure how I was going to feel about how it would look on me until I tried it on once everything was finished, but I really like how it turned out. You can see the sleeves here. I think the detailing on them is super cute. I really like how that looks. And then there's the neckline, and then it's kind of like a tunic, so it comes down probably about mid-thigh, I'd say, and it opens up. It's a top created by Crochet Creations, designed for like nursing and pregnant women, so that it can grow in the belly area as the baby grows. It allows for space to be a maternity top, and then also like this front panel wraps across this other panel, and then it actually all opens up for like nursing. And I think it has a lot of flexibility, and like I'm neither pregnant nor nursing, and I was testing this top for someone not in either of those categories to make sure it still worked for everyday, any day use, and it does. I really enjoy wearing it. It's really comfortable. I used Karen Big Cakes in afternoon tea for the top, and I only had one big cake, and that gave me my top panel. And then the rest of it, this cream color, happens to actually fit. Like, this is the big cake, and this is red heart. There's a little difference, not on camera, but I mean on camera you couldn't even tell which one would be which. They fit together perfectly. I supplemented with red heart. Super blanking on the name now, but that one, Super Saver, for the rest of like the accents, the detailing, and then the actual tunic part of the top. So once you see the photo, all of that will make more sense, but I just wanted to talk a little bit about this top itself. It's the Sweet Pea Wrap top. I can't remember if I actually said the name of the top, but it uses the sweet pea stitch that Crochet Creations has used in a couple of other items that they've designed. It's part of like a series, and this stitch is super cute. In fact, that's kind of what's making this neckline here. It's like ruffly. I think it has a lot of texture. Eats a lot of yarn. A lot of yarn. All of my information for this top is in my Ravelry, which I'll have in the description below. For all my yardage information, the yarn that I used, like the hook and everything, my modifications, I did have to make the armhole a little bit longer, as well as the actual bust part of my top. I had to make that taller, and therefore it made the wrap longer, which worked out well. It fits really nicely with that modification. So yeah, overall very pleased with it. Super comfortable, doesn't feel tight in any areas, which, you know, for a maternity top you don't want it to be tight. Lots of flexibility, so pretty cool top. I had the pleasure of testing it, but it is out now, and at least yesterday when it released it was 50% off, so check out that pattern if you want a cute top. Second finished object is going to be, I think I teased this for the first time in my last video. This is the project I made with the October Knit Crate. They partnered with Knititude to have yarn and patterns, and I did the knit version, the cowl. It's Celtic something or other. I have this in my Ravelry too, and I'll probably have that information in the description. And this was the chonk yarn in petal, and it's really pretty. You can see it has this cabling all the way down. I'm a little sad because I think my cabling ended up flattening out in the blocking, but for my first cabling project I think it turned out really pretty. I like it a lot. I also really like this color. The yarn, someone commented about it when I posted it in the Knit Crate. It kind of looks like it would be itchy, but it is actually really soft yarn. It's super soft. I'm excited to wear it. I've only taken pictures with it so far, and I haven't really gone anywhere to use it yet, but it is definitely cold enough, and I'm very excited to actually try it on. It's she calls it a dicky, but the idea is that it goes around your neck and it goes to about my waist, I'd say, and then you put a coat on top, and then it looks like you're wearing this super beautiful knit bulky sweater, but without being restricted in your arms by a bulky sweater, which has always been my problem with layering clothes in the winter. So I'm very excited about that part of it. For my final finished object, it's inside out. I'm gonna have to show a photo of this too because it's a lot bigger than what I will be able to show on camera. But I finally finished my cat cardigan. I just switched priorities to finish some tests that I had committed to, and then I needed to order some more yarn. But look at how cute it is. So I ended up using technically 5 yarns because I did some creative shuffling, and I'm excited because on camera, when colors normally end up being much more obvious, you can't even tell the difference of where I switched light grays here, but there are 2 different yarns on the sleeve, on both sleeves actually. So 5 colors. I had 4 cat colors. So you can see I had it start with the gray actually. The pattern I started with gray, but the idea was that it went from light to dark to darker and then orange between the 2 really bright, or the 2 most contrasting colors. So I picked these colors because they were cat colors. I thought they would work up really nicely, and they did. I was right. I'm very not to brag or anything, but I'm very happy with my color choice. I love it a lot. I decided to do a light gray for the sleeve because I didn't want it to blend in. My ribbing is the dark gray, which I use because I ran out of light gray, but I wanted it to pop against the gray rows, so I decided to add completely different color for the sleeve, and I really like how the sleeves turned out. I don't hate the ribbing in the dark gray. I like it, but it does blend in with the gray cat rose. So super warm. I was kind of not sure how, like, if it was windy outside, I probably wouldn't want to wear this because this is a pretty holy pattern. Like, there's a lot of gaps in between, but overall it is very warm, and I've been wearing it around our apartment and it feels lovely, and it makes me very happy. I did have to make quite a bit of modifications to this. In fact, everything on this has been adapted from the original pattern. I have all of that information as well in my Ravelry project page for how I did the back panel, how I did each of the side panels, and then the sleeves. I made notes for how I changed it. I basically just wrapped around my arm as I moved from my wrist up to my, it like goes to about here. Every row basically I wrapped it around to see how it fit, and then I made modifications to make it bigger as I needed to. So yes, I'm excited to wear this. So that is finished objects. I only have 2 whips to show today. Like I said, the rest of them are gifts, so those will be later on, not a share now thing. But the first, it's still not super exciting to see, but I'm bringing it back because I made some progress on it this week. I'm trying not to drop it off of my needles. So this is my Dragonflight shawl that is using my beautiful Night Fury and Light Fury yarns from Bad Wolf Girl Sits and Knits. Yeah, that's the right side I'm showing you right now, because the pearl is the front. That's all. I mean, the scales are kind of jumbled up right now. I'm still on row 1, but technically row 1 is 1 row of scales versus, like, each of these is 24 rows worked back and forth. I've never made anything that's constructed like this before, so it's been really fun, but I finally hit the middle point before I do the rest of the scales on the other side of the shawl. So progress, but also it's taking so long. And then this is going to take me a while. I'm happy that it started at the longest end because it's only going to get faster from here, and because each scale is built in full at one time. Like, it's a mix of like instant gratification because one scale doesn't take too long, but then one row takes longer because you're doing one scale, but then because you're doing a full scale or full row of scales as you go, I mean, by the time I hit row 2, I'm hoping that I'll be able to actually see enough of it off the needle to get a sense for what it's going to look like. So, Dragonflight shawl. And I'm going to carefully put this down because I don't want anything to fall off. Okay, so whip 1. Whip 2, I actually just started last night because even though I told myself I wasn't going to sign up for any more tests this year, since I'm waiting on yarn anyway, I signed up for this one because it's going to be super quick. In fact, I have a week to work on it. Super quick, super cute. It's a Gnome wine bottle topper by Nana's Crafty Home. I think that's the full tag, but I'll have that in the description too. I just started on it, so I don't have much to show, but I knew I had to use this beautiful crimson. It's I love this yarn. Hobby Lobby, I love this yarn, which is one of my favorite like store brand acrylics to work with. It's so soft and they have so many colors. And then the color is cranberry. So it's just such a beautiful, rich red. Perfect holiday color. So this is where I'm at. I think it's going to continue being, I don't even know what shape it's going to be, but essentially it's going to end up being the gnome's hat. I don't know if it'll just be a triangle, then it wraps around and like that. And then there's like a little nose. But the fun thing about this pattern is that it utilizes faux fur, which I happen to have some left over from a nutcracker I made last year for Christmas. So I thought it would be a fun way to use up some of this material that I had on hand. And honestly, I had the faux fur in this one color, so I had to pick, not that there'd be too many colors that wouldn't go with black, but I just figured this red would really look so good with it. Like that's gonna be, so a little bit of an unconventional gnome with not having a white beard, but I think that will make it fun. So I'm very excited about that. It'll work up pretty quickly. I've never tried a sewing faux fur before, so we'll see how that goes. I'm just gonna be like hand stitching it, I imagine. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I can share. I don't think so though. I busted out a lot of my long-term projects last weekend. This had been something I'd been working on. Okay, I say long-term, but I guess it was only like a month. But I had to frog it a couple times and I kept running out of yarn because I seriously underestimated how much yarn it was going to eat up. So just felt like it was a lot longer than it actually was. The pieces themselves work up pretty quickly. The sweet pea stitch, again, it does eat up a lot of yarn, but it goes pretty quick. And then yeah, like my cat cardigan and the dicky I picked up because I needed a quick project to just do something else, and I really wanted to knit, and I knew that Dragonflight shawl was going to take too much brain power, so I did that quick knit just to feel that gratification of finishing a project. And then the cat cardigan has been something that I have been working on and off on for 2 months or so. I think I started it early September, and then I ran out of yarn, and I was waiting for yarn and started other things and finished those things and then picked that back up and then ran out of more yarn. Yeah, I think that was the life cycle. Got put on hold so that I could finish this. Then I was waiting for yarn, but it is done. I finished it Sunday night. So I'm kind of at the point where I don't have a lot of projects on my horizon outside of the gifts that I'm going to be making. So I feel like I want to try and carefully plan what the next things look like, because I am in that position to now. It's not just like, oh, I wish I had time to make this. I should have time to make it. I'm going to try and not sign up for tests as much as I have been, but we'll see. I like doing testing, so that probably won't change. To me, it melds my love of crocheting, and I eventually want to do some knit testing too, but I want to learn and be more confident with knitting first. So it melds my love of crochet with my love for copy editing, which is what I do partly for my day job, and looking for inconsistencies and checking things like stitch counts, like the really nitty-gritty, mundane parts of pattern testing. It's my favorite part of it. So, like, obviously at the end of the day, I love having things that I've made, but the process to me is super fun. I love it a lot. So I'm sure I will continue testing. I've been testing, I think I did my first test last November, actually. It was like a little amigurumi. I'm trying to remember which one was my first, because I did two, I think, at about the same time. But I know they were amigurumi that were my first tests. And I just fell in love with doing it. So it will definitely continue being in my future. But for now, I have a Ravelry queue that I have the option of looking through. There are some colder weather projects there, and I'm trying to decide if I want to start more colder weather. I mean, it is just, I say just, we've had snow and things already for a while. So it feels like it's been longer, but it really is just mid-November, and where I live, it stays pretty cold through March, typically. Like, cold enough that I could still maybe wear shawls and hats and things. So I'm trying to decide if I want to start another cold weather project. I do have a crochet sweater that I started right before quarantine earlier this year. It was really when I started picking up garment making, because I hadn't done a whole lot of it before. I'd done some of it, but not like what I've been doing this year. So it was my first sweater that I was kind of like, oh, I'll follow a pattern and see how this works up. And then I stopped because it started getting warm and I wanted to make more in-season things. I need to be better about planning ahead. The problem is people release patterns for the season. It makes sense, but then I'm like, oh, I want to make that. And then I'm starting, I mean, it takes time to make these things. And then I'm starting things late for the season that I should be wearing them in. So we'll see. We'll see. I might switch gears to some of the, I didn't get to all of the like spring and summery clothes that I wanted to make this year. So I might start on those. Or I might not. We'll see. But there's one more thing I wanted to share before I wrap up today. And it is because this arrived, I think in the first video I had shared, maybe I didn't, but there's a, is it still called Sanderson Sister? Oh no, I think the pattern name changed and I can't remember what it's called now. Superstitious Pullover, that's what it is, by Michael Shawn is the Instagram handle. They designed the sweater and it's a free pattern. Like, I couldn't believe it. It's free because I fell in love with this sweater. I talked about it before, I'm pretty sure. I just don't know if I showed it. I fell in love with this pattern the moment they started posting photos of it. And they partnered with, I think this is the Little Wolf Knits. Sorry, that crackling is probably super annoying. Little Wolf Knits to do, like, they dyed a set of minis. You could choose if you wanted one for, I guess I should back up. I mentioned this was originally called the Sanderson Sisters sweater or something like that. Because it features the possibility of having Winifred, Sarah, or Mary on the sweater. And so the Little Wolf Knits created mini skeins that could coordinate with each of the sisters. I got the minis for all three because I want to have all three of them. I cannot choose one of the sisters. I love them all. It'll be my first color work sweater, maybe. It would have been, but I probably won't start it till next year, so who knows? Who knows if it will be my first actual color knit sweater, but it is the first one that I've purchased materials for with the plan of knitting it. So these are the beautiful minis. I'm trying to get it so the light's not quite reflecting off of it. So you have like the dark brown, then you have the green and orange for Winnie, you have the yellow and purple for Sarah, black and red for Mary, and then like skin tone. So I'm going to use these for the sisters. And I was going to look at maybe not necessarily using the set of minis, but I couldn't help myself. I love the way, like, I've fallen in love with the way the subtle variations that come with hand-dyed yarn. I just love the texture that it adds. Like, I don't know, I've been following so many more yarn dyers and so many people who are working with hand-dyed yarn that I start, sorry, I'm gonna put that down so I stop crackling that. I see like these super solid like yarns work up, and I don't know, it's almost jarring in a way. Like, I've worked with this very solid yarn all of my life, and for a long time I didn't really like variegated yarn or anything with variation. I wanted my solids and I wanted them to be through and through solid. And I love the texture that comes with, I mean, this is technically a solid yarn. But as you can see, especially in the green and the orange there is beautiful variation. I mean, it is gorgeous. And seeing how the testers for this sweater worked with these minis and just like the way it all comes together, I had to. So that's that. It hasn't arrived yet, but I finally, with all of those colors, I had a really hard time deciding what I wanted to do for the main color. And I haven't quite picked out my contrast, my main contrast color, my main contrast and my main. I haven't quite picked out what I want to do for my contrast color yet. For the rest of the color work, like those will be for the sisters. And then there's like webbing and other things that you can add in. And so I do want to do a light color because the main color I ended up choosing is darker. But I haven't quite decided it yet. And I had such a hard time picking a main because I wanted something that would not clash with my minis. Since I was doing all three of the witches, I mean, you got a lot of colors to cover there. And originally, I would have loved to do like a rustic orange. I think that would make such a beautiful, especially with this being like a Halloween / autumn pullover, like that beautiful burnt orange. In fact, almost like Winnie's hair, to be honest. I think that would make for a beautiful background, but obviously when I have it as part of my color work, I wanted to make sure that all stood out. And it hasn't arrived yet, but I used this, it's backwards, so I'm sorry about that, this color guide from Knit Picks that is supposed to be color accurate. And I think I mentioned this in my first video too, that with the way things appear on screen, sorry, just gonna make sure that's still good. Everyone's screens are calibrated differently when you're on a mobile, when you're on your desktop, when you're using someone else's device, it's hard to like fully understand what that color is going to be. But Knit Picks releases this yarn guide because they ensure that these are color correct images. So for as perfectly as something can print and represent the color, that is what this is supposed to be. So I've been using this for actually quite a few different projects. I bought this originally because of one of the secret gifts that I'm making. I needed to be very intentional with my color choices. It's a color work project, especially with how different shades of colors relate to each other. And so because of that, I figured this would be the safest way. And I like being able to see a whole bunch of different brands in one place, so I could just put little sticky notes for the things that I'm considering, and then I can really start narrowing it down from there. And these are actually the sticky notes that I used for my Superstitious pullover, so I had quite a few brands that I was looking at. It's a DK weight sweater, so I wanted to make sure it matched with the minis that I was getting, and so these were the DKs that I found that could have options for my main color. And I ended up, tweed is another thing that I really didn't care for, and all of a sudden I'm seeing people work with it and it just looks so good. So I picked a bold choice, but one that I'm very excited about, and that is the City Tweed. It looks like it's a blend of merino wool, alpaca, and then the tweed. And it comes in DK and then Aran weight. And I picked, oops, let's see how can I do this. This teal. I don't know how well that's gonna show up, but this teal, it's called Jacquard, I think. It's a teal tweed, and I picked teal because I knew no matter how much I wanted it to work with all the witches I was doing, I wasn't gonna get my beautiful rustic orange color that I envisioned. Like this habanero would have been another fun background color, but just wasn't in the cards for what I wanted to do, and having the three sisters was more important than, to me, the rustic orange. So as I was looking through, and I knew I wanted, again, with this new fascination of mine and like the multi-toned effect almost, like I had thumbed and marked out, what's it called? This back here, that's marked. Swish, the Swish DK. There's something about how solid that yarn was. I was worried about what it would look like with the witch minis. And I say that because ironically I'm probably going to end up using one of these colors for my contrast color, but that's okay. So like I was looking at Swish, I was looking at the Gloss DK, a lot of fun yarns. Capra was another brand that I was very close to picking something from, because it also has kind of like it's definitely solid, but it almost looks like it has that similar variation in tones. And then actually one of the closest contenders with my teal tweed was the Alpaca Cloud brand, because they have a lot of pretty sorry like these neutrals that are like, they have like a hint of lighter colors that are acting as an undertone, so it has that multi-dimensional effect with the yarn as well. And if I would have picked from that, I think I would have done, actually I don't know, I had a hard time choosing. I would have liked to do, I can't even remember which color it was now. There was a color here that I wanted to do, but it wasn't available in DK, so that's ultimately what helped me decide on the City Tweed. So it is coming. I placed the order hopefully it kind of looks like what this book looks like. It'll be interesting to see how close they are. But it was between the kelp and the jacquard, and I went with the jacquard because it was the more intense, and I was worried the kelp would start blending in with maybe Winnie, maybe. So we'll see. I'm very excited. I probably won't start it this year, especially with Halloween being over. But who knows? I might start it and then I'll have it to wear for next year for Halloween. So that was a lot of chatting. I think that's where I'm going to call it. I've covered everything that I wanted to cover today. So yeah, I'll have more social media information and things below where you can find me. I'm most active on Instagram. That's where I usually post like my whips, things in my stories. I used to be a lot more active there than I am now, but that is definitely where I'm the most active. I've been religiously using Ravelry for all of my projects so I can keep track of my needles that I'm using, the yarn that I'm using, the amount of yarn I'm using, all that good stuff, any modifications I make. I really wish I would have discovered that part of Ravelry sooner in my life than I did. I've only been using it for about 6 months in that capacity. Like I've been using it for patterns and things for years and years, but as far as like project keeping, it's just a whole game changer for me because I constantly forget what hooks I use for things, and like I have a digital notepad on my phone where I try to keep track of that, but it's nice having one page where I can add private notes about random bits of yarn that I'm using that I'm not really sure what it is, but at least I can weigh it out and say how many grams, like my cat cardigan. I had unlabeled yarn that I ended up swapping in for that light gray, and I don't know how many yards it is, but at least I know how many grams of it I used. So yeah, all that information's there. Hope wherever you are, you're staying safe and healthy, and you know, this year's almost over. We'll leave it there.